She's with us. She's our maybe she manages our she's our accountant. Maybe good evening. Good evening. Please can you hear me at the back? If you can't hear me, can you move forward a bit? We have seats up here. My voice goes down sometimes, so you're not going to be hearing me for a while. So I think it's better you come up. Anyway, we want to start slowly. Uh, Welcome everybody. This is our Outlook event by the Harvard Business Association of Nigeria. I want to thank all of you for coming. My name is Collins Onuebu. I'm the president of the association in Nigeria. And what we're doing today, we inherited it actually. Uh, we've had the grace of having Bismarck doing this for us now for the past 7 years or longer. I think longer. Yes, he's done this for us, and he's done it completely free for us for the past more than 10 years. And even though I think it will be here in a moment, but we are grateful and just want to be grateful for what we have. I know he does this everywhere in Nigeria, um, but we're going to listen to him as he comes. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes just talking a bit about the Harvard Business Association in Nigeria and some of the things we've done. Last year, we were I inherited a board that started end of 2023, and our tenure ends end of 2025. And we were quite busy last year. Um, last year, we started with Bismarck again. And we did a few things last year, including we're quite busy. We did an industry event in oil and gas, and it was quite well attended event. We did an event with um, Rajiv Shah. Is the MD of Rockefeller Foundation. He came here to launch a book, so partnered with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and Business Day to host him here. Can you move on? And Lagos Business School. We brought in Lagos Business School. Okay. Sometimes in the year, Harvard professors come to Nigeria and we bring them here and do some teaching for or continuous learning for our students. So last year we hosted a few of them. Want to ramp up on this. We had a class here I think it was end of 2023. But last year we couldn't. So we did a few meetings with some of the professors that come from Harvard. Our hope is that those of us who can buy flight tickets to Harvard again, that anyone that comes here will do a class, take a picture and send it to Harvard and say we're still learning, something like that. So we're hoping to continue doing this as much as possible. We partnered with the Harvard Club to host the CBN governor end of last year. Harvard Club didn't we partner? Why you laugh? Okay. Well, Harvard Club is the umbrella association of anybody that went to Harvard, not Harvard Business School. And it includes your children, your family, your village. Once you go to, but it includes your family and your children. Once you go to Harvard, if you're a member of Harvard Club, you invite everybody around you, they join. So the umbrella association. So we normally partner with them to do stuff also, yeah. Um, what is the golf tournament? We had a golf tournament last year. We what we try to do is that instead of just doing, we've always been in business school doing business programs. Last year we took it out of the classroom and hosted a golf tournament, which we want to host again this year. And the reason for that was we found out that if you look at business has become social, so we wanted to socialize our business. And more, I think it was possibly the best thing we did last year because it was quite well attended. I think businesses were done. We had good sponsors. And a lot of people who are here belong to the class of people who play golf. And we hosted a class to teach people how to play golf. I don't know, did anybody attend the golf clinic? Who are those that attended the golf clinic? You did? You learned something? Are you playing now? We're going to do another clinic this year until we get everybody to play golf. Okay. End of last year, so we hosted people that are in the MBA class came around. Some of them that came around, and then we had quite a good session with them. It's surprising that uh, despite the crash in Naira, that there are still some Nigerians who send their kids to Harvard Business School to do MBA because it's pretty expensive. I understand the rich people who can go and do OPM and all that, but for parents here to send their kids to Harvard, or for some individuals to pay to go to MBA this time, I mean, I was encouraged. And finally, is that the last one? That was our last event last year. No, that wasn't there. Go back up. I think you can go back one more page. The last thing we did last year was actually the agreement we signed with Enterprise Development Center. As I said, we have four pillars under which we are doing programs. One is business, continuous learning, giving back, philanthropy, and then lifestyle. Now, we're thinking about how to give back to society, but we're not going to go to motherless babies home because we have our business. So what we did was we signed this agreement. I mean, it's good to go to motherless babies home, but it has to fall into the pillars of this is a business school, and the things we do, Harvard is good on very heavy on giving back. But I thought that we should give back in a way that is creative. So we signed an agreement with the Enterprise Development Center of the Lagos Business School. They are doing a program to have a study on how mentorship affects business in Nigeria. And they approached us to sign an agreement with them. So we're going to do this pilot this year. On the basis of that, they're going to publish a book about the impact of mentoring for small. This program is supposed to start in February. Please, the alums that are here, if you're interested in being part of this mentoring program, let us know. Some people have already volunteered, but we're still looking for a few more people to join us to work with them to do this program this year. Once it's done, it's something we want to be doing every year with them. If you know about the Enterprise Development Center, I think that the biggest center for small businesses in Nigeria. I'm a member myself. They're part of the Pan Atlantic University, and they have one of the biggest networks for small businesses and startups. I think that's all. What else do I have here? Please go, keep going, keep going, keep going. Up. No, no, down towards the end. Okay, I think this year we're going to do essentially what we've done last year. Most of the programs we've instituted this year, last year, we're going to continue doing them this year. But this year we're also planning to bring back one of the programs we've taught for a while now called the Black Tie Dinner. Normally, in the past, we used to have a Black Tie Dinner, we do awards. We couldn't do it during COVID, a part of COVID, and we couldn't do it last year. But this year, we're hoping that we can start that program again. And we're asking members to, first of all, we have a few ads. One is that members should keep supporting us. We sent out a mail last week that we're raising our annual dues. Does anybody have any issues with that? I was happy when we sent this out. A friend, somebody just called me and says, "Oh, this is your life membership. Can I just pay for life membership?" And he just paid his life membership. And I was wondering whether we should have just raised it higher so that, I mean, it was like it was low. Our membership dues was benchmarked at about $120 some time ago, and then Naira did something, and then it came down to about $40. So not up to about $30, not even up to $30. We've moved it back again, close to where it was before. So because at the point for a while now, while we've been here, we've run ourselves purely based on sponsorship because our membership dues was not doing much anymore, and we have to fund ourselves to do the kind of things we want to do. So please, when you send that notice, um, just make sure that you pay, um, so that we can continue doing the good work we got. If you want to pay now, we'll give you an account number, transfer so you can transfer. No, we didn't come here to beg. We're looking doing an economic value. We didn't come to beg for money. I'm just mentioning it. So, but if you want to pay, we give you an account to pay. We also have had a lot of sponsorship. The golf tournament we did, we ran a surplus because I think we got quite a lot of sponsorship, and that was very good. I see some of the people that sponsored us here. I see IG there. IG, thank you. Who else sponsored us here? Oh, my company sponsored also, but so okay, you can thank me. Okay. But this year we're going to start early. I'm sure some of you who didn't sponsor last year, you sponsor us this year. We'll always depend on sponsors for, for events. So thank you for always sponsoring us. And these are some of the sponsors. We had Shoreline sponsors this year. We put Bismarck here as a sponsor because this event it does for us. Sometimes we take him for granted, but yeah, he kind of. We have quite a lot of companies that sponsor us. Is it- Okay, I heard Bismarck is close by. I was hoping to keep talking until he gets here, but it's close by, and I finished what I wanted to say. So I don't know what they to say. But please, if there's any question or clarification you want to talk about, do you want to make a comment? Please, I'll allow you to make a comment while we wait for him to get here. Otherwise, I'll sit down. But if I sit down, this place will be too quiet. There's nothing to do. We're not playing music for anybody. There's no musical interlude. So, any questions, comments? Anybody here who is not a member of Harvard Business School who wants to clarify how to go to Harvard Business School? I'll just take a moment to clarify. If you're looking for sponsorship to go, we don't sponsor students to go. You have to pay yourself. So don't ask for sponsorship. Okay, so welcome everybody. When we finish, when Bismarck is done, we'll go outside there and have some refreshments. So don't go until we finish and have some refreshments. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Hizoje Hiowile. I'm one of the board members of the Harvard Business School Alumni Association of Nigeria. On behalf of the board and members, I would like to apologize for our late start. And we've just had a quick board discussion, and we've decided that whilst we're waiting for Mr. Iwani to come, um, we should kickstart the conversation before he comes, then we can pick it up when he's here. So in other words, we are all gathered this evening to discuss the economic outlook of Nigeria in 2025. And all of us seated in this room today are from different industries, different sectors, and it's hitting us differently. So I'd like to ask people to voluntarily come up from different sectors and just say one or two words about how they see 2025 and how they think it will impact their industry. I know I may be putting you on the spot. We don't expect you to give an expert opinion, but just a general opinion that can more or less guide our conversation this evening. So I think I would like to start with one of our very distinguished alumnus to discuss with us, tell us what he thinks from the real estate sector. So, Mr. IJ. Hello, sir. Yes. I kindly invite you to tell us a bit, 1, 2, 3 minutes, kickstart the conversation. What do you think about, what are your outlook about 2025 and how it's going to hit the real estate sector? Then we can move to oil and gas, move down the oil and gas and all of that. Okay. Just to keep us busy, engaged, and intellectually connected whilst we're waiting for Mr. Iwani.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask my colleague Jamila Fani to speak.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am IG's colleague, and we are from the construction sector. I think most times it's just one big umbrella called real estate. And we like to pride ourselves as the biggest employers of labor. And, there's usually spending in the construction sector. But while those numbers are very big, as contractors, it's something that we have had to navigate, very delicately. We've had situations where before we could easily have fluctuating contracts. That is where you have, fixed contracts where you have the same rates at the beginning of the project and still maintain them until the end of the project because the economy was kind of stable. But now we hardly do that. In fact, we specifically inform clients ahead of time that we do not do fixed price contracts any longer because we can't predict what happens at the end from the beginning. That's one. We hedge against fluctuation again. We get large advance payments because we need the funds to be able to hold down our materials. And then that way we're trying to determine what our bottom line would be and also ensure the client gets the materials, that is required for the project. What else do we do? IG. Yes. I'm just trying to. I mean, these are just some of the things that we do. We fluctuating contracts, high advance. Um, hint. Yes. Oh, how this year? Last year, I think that we're beginning to see and it's beginning to look better, from last year up till this year. And I know some contractors are not finding it very difficult, very very easy accessing projects, but we have somehow been lucky. I don't know if it's luck or we've just been prepared, for this time because we've had the dry seasons, and now things are looking up. Things are looking up for us. So the construction sector, I believe that there's going to be a lot of investment in infrastructure this year. The government is working with parastatals, trying to invest in heavy infrastructure. There's lots of investment in healthcare. There's lots of investment in power, and we all know what's happening in the power sector right now. There's also lots of infrastructure investment in the roads, yes, and then agric as well. Food security is something that the government is very heavy on right now. So yeah, I think those sectors are going to look good for us, and if we have access to that, yeah.
So something else, where over the last few months, we're beginning to see some stability in prices because our raw materials are mainly imported, so linked to the exchange rate. So because last few months it's been 1.5, 1.7, been hovering around there. So we see some predictability, and we're hoping it stays like that. And also, this helps our clients to predict. People are not going to invest when there's a lot of fluctuation, there's a lot of swing in the exchange rate. So it looks like people are beginning to say, okay, exchange rate maybe is going to stay at 1.5, 1.7. Let's plan with that. We see a very busy year up front. That's what we see. You have something else to say?
I remember last year when we were running our budgets in January, we were hedging, we were using 2,000 naira per dollar because we did not know where it was going to get to. It was 1,001 at the beginning of the year. It went as high as 1,003, came down to 900, and then up to 1,1, and then now went upward. So we had used 2,000 naira per dollar last year, but now that it's hovering, between 1,6, 1,7, we know that hopefully it should either get better or at least, stabilize at about that rate.
So, pivoting to real estate now. I mean, whatever happens in the construction industry affects the real estate. So you're going to see a lot of people buying houses last year. Their developers were coming to us for more money, more money, more money. So hopefully, with a huge outlay in terms of advance, you can hold on the price. So for us, after we did this last year, we had 3 major projects that we invested in early in the year. What we only worried about was fuel price, right? Running costs, which is minimal compared to the cost of input materials. So that's how we've been able to survive the year. And hopefully, with all the investments coming in now, we expect this year to be better. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. So I tell everyone that anyone who cares to listen or who analyzes the numbers coming out of Nigeria, 2025 is a very special year. I think this is the year we have the highest budget so far, 49.7 trillion, and is dubbed, I think, restoration, building prosperity, and all of that. Is there anyone here who would like to speak from the oil and gas sector? Downstream, upstream, midstream. Just tell us what you think, what you're thinking, how you see the budget, the outlook, the indices, and how it can affect your business and what to watch out for. Again, we're not looking for any expert opinion. We're just rubbing minds and having a friendly conversation. Anyone? Oil and gas? Okay, let's go. Try.
All right.
What? So
Good evening.
upstream, downstream, midstream,
Okay,
or general?
I will do more of the upstream.
Upstream. Okay, thank you.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Blessing Obehiyayemere. I'm the program secretary of HBS AN. I also operate in the oil and gas upstream. Like you said, I will not speak as an expert, but I will just share thoughts around what is happening. So production so far this year has gone up. We hear it's around 1.9, and that's both the crude and condensate. So, and also we see that rig count has gone up in Nigeria. So, and rig count is an indication of activity in the oil and gas. Are people drilling? Are people getting the capital to actually drill more wells and improve the reserves? So we see that rig count is going up, and that means a lot of people are doing activities around that space. We also know that in 2021-22, about 51 licenses were given out by NUPRC. So PPL this time, we used to call them marginal field, but they were all PPL. And I think we're in the third year where NUPRC says you drill or drop. So what that means is that for those that have not been able to meet their minimum work program, in that license, they are supposed to drop those licenses. Okay. I was in Abuja yesterday, actually came back today, and I was there with a team that actually was trying to get a conversion from a PPL to a PML. And we hear that it's only 2 out of 51 licenses, all right, that are currently doing that right now. And that means 49 of the 51 are likely to encounter, the not pleasant side of the commission. So what that means again is that we are going to see pressure for the few months that are remaining before people are asked to drop their licenses. We are going to see pressure of people that want to drill. But that also speaks to financing. Able to do this for a few obvious reasons. One, some of the people that got these licenses, so if you go back a little bit, you know that these licenses were given to what we call strange bedfellows, people that didn't know themselves. 5 people giving 1 license, 7 people, 10 people in some cases got the license. So some are busy fighting instead of, developing or doing their minimal work program. Some, they are together, but they are not able to access the finance because the minimum finance is about between 21 to 25 million dollars to do your minimal work program, all right, before you can do your FDP and conversion. Now, what is all this saying? One, for the financial sectors, I think it's a good time to begin to look at those good assets, those that have the skill, competencies, those that have shown proof that they can do this business and they have good reserves, to support them because the federal government is doing everything possible to ensure that production actually goes up to 2 million in this year. For those that are actually in the service sector, in the oil and gas, I think it's a good time to also position if you have good um, ideas to sell to them, whether come up with a turnkey kind of project on how you can help people um, drill and participate for those that are willing to get partnership into that sector. Um, for the infrastructure, which is a big deal also, that's another good part. A lot of people don't have access to evacuation facilities. So if that is your call, so I will speak to IG again into infrastructure, generally construction, but people in your sector also could find an opportunity to partner, with developers at this point. Otherwise, they're going to lose their licenses, okay? Because after 3 years, there is a likelihood that there will not be renewal in that space, as it were. But generally, if we look at the space, we see more of indigenous players. Of course, we saw the approvals that were given to Wando, to Steplat, to the Renaissance Group, and to PAL Group. I think we have 4 of them. That is very good development in this space. It means that we have a lot of indigenous players now showing more competence, do more work in this space. So the industry is getting more exciting. The government is willing to support. There have been some executive orders that are supporting the time completion of contracts, reduction in costs as much as possible, and creating the overall enabling environment. I think I will stop at this point. I hope I've tried to go through as much as I can. Thank you so much. Over to you.
So before the contribution on tech, it's interesting because I was just reading the update from the essay on energy and the fact that sort of there seems to be some progress in getting more investments back into the sector, and there's a bold vision that the government has for energy. But I think one thing I wanted to talk about was the Trump effect. It's important that we look at that and how it's going to impact the energy sector for countries like Nigeria and even in terms of our policy making. Because For instance, the US pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement means that, at least that's what some people are saying, all the progress you've seen on clean energy, we're going to see that being pulled back. And quite a number of, renewable energy initiatives here depend on the funding and all that support from out there. And then Trump is being bullish about making sure that they increase oil and gas production in the US. They're going to be competing. In fact, he's also been very clear about saying that he's going to get in touch with, put pressure on Saudi Arabia and OPEC, drive down oil prices. So again, it comes back to what it means for us as a country and how we want to plan towards that. Because if oil prices are going to up, that's definitely going to impact us as a country. So beyond the fact that he really wants to compete on that, I think even some costs that they've had on LNG production and all that, he's basically been very bullish and it's America first. So that's definitely going to have impact on us. So it's important to at least recognize the Trump effect. And we hope that the government is also looking at that. Whether we like it or not, it's definitely going to impact our planning for energy. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Lawrence Okoli. I'm VP for the Harvard Business School Alumni Association. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Florence. Before I call on someone else to add one or two, I think it will be fair for me to also offer my 2 cents on my own industry. I play in the fintech financial services industry, and I can say state categorically that 2025 is going to be a very positive year for our industry. And I make bold to say that for several reasons, and this is just my perspective. Firstly, I think we're going to see a lot of economic growth. We plan is to be very bullish in economic growth this year. We're looking at about that country in Nigeria, 3.5 to 4% growth. And what that does basically is that it drives a lot of business activities. And I mean, everyone needs their financial services partner to be able to drive all of that. Secondly, again, I'm looking at the regulatory framework. We hope, based on projections, again, the MPR in 2025 will come down at least 450 basis points. We are doing about benchmark 27.5. We are hoping that it will come down by 450 basis points. If that happens, you know what goes on. Lending is increased. We can lend more. Banks can make more money. The economy can drive growth and all of that. The Nigerian financial industry continues to attract a lot of investors from abroad, especially the fintech space. There are some statistics I like to share whenever I talk about my industry. We have a very, very young population. We're projected to be over 200 million. The mean age in Nigeria today is 18. If you compare that to China, which is about 65 or so, you can see that the only way we can go in this country is up. And what that means is there's room for innovation, plenty of innovation, digitization around payment solutions, around banking, and so on and so forth. So I can say very well that the financial service industry / fintech industry would do very well in 2025, given the bullish stance of the government. All right. So does anyone have one or two things to add again? Your industry, very happy to speak to you, listen to you. Yes, please. We have, okay. All right, let's hear our president speak on his own industry.
Okay. Sorry, I'm here again. My industry, I'm in the tech industry, and perhaps it would be good to talk about what has been happening between China and America in the tech industry in the past few days. It was a very good thing that it happened when, I think it happened on January 20th. While America was celebrating a new president, China was celebrating a new AI, DeepSeek or something. But if you look at the tech industry, I've been in the tech industry for a while, and we've gone through generations of tech. And the industry has a good way of making everybody apprehensive and afraid, and then we make money out of it. We always make money out of your fear. And this one was supposed to be the biggest jackpot, but it's like China is spoiling it for us. So, um, but whatever you, I think for Nigeria, the tech industry this year was that companies are going to start adopting AI, individuals are going to adopt AI, and the best thing it can do for you beyond the noise is that it makes you more productive, it makes your people more productive. So if you are, for instance, a first bank and you adopt AI and your people become 30% smarter, it means that if you are competing with an access bank that has not adopted, that you can do more with less. Essentially, that's a simple way of looking at AI. I think our guest is here, our speaker is here, so I think we have to leave this AI conversation for later time. But Deep predicted that he was going to be here by this time. Thank you very much.
Introducing him. I don't know if Collins. Collins is here.
We allow Bismarck to catch his breath. We've always known Bismarck for wearing a very smart suit. Today he's not wearing a suit. Maybe I have to explain to us why he's not wearing a suit. Oh. So, welcome. How many minutes do you want us to give you? 2 minutes. Okay. I concluded and I said, AI, I have DeepSeek on my phone. Yes, that's why I was searching for him on DeepSeek. How many people have DeepSeek on their phone? ChatGPT.
Yeah, sorry. This is not my industry, but DeepSeek is free. So if you use DeepSeek, it is equivalent to the $200 model per month you use in ChatGPT. That's the revolution. You can take DeepSeek, your office data, all your database, everything else. You can take DeepSeek, the engine, the model, download it on your server, and you can study your data without Chinese or anyone connecting to it because there's no internet connection. So there's no way for, so you can actually take that, it's free. There's no catch. That's the point. What the catch is that Chinese have commoditized AI. There is no moat. If you spend $1 billion to produce an AI, they produce a free one. So it's very good for Nigeria. In my company, the first thing I've told my guys is, how do I download DeepSeek onto my servers so that I can use LLM to question my data? So if my legal needs to know what case is happening where, they type it in, the case comes straight up. The value is, we don't even know what the value is yet. It's going to be game changing.
So the US-China war, what do you think about it?
It's company to company. Do you know how they did it? So does anyone know how they did it, by the way? How DeepSeek solved the problem they solved? So you know there's sanctions in China. You cannot buy the best from NVIDIA. China is not allowed to buy the best chip because the Americans wanted to stop the Chinese catching up. So what the Chinese did, there was a hedge fund guy sitting in China who worked out how to run the same model for $5 million, train it, produce the same result the Americans did for billions.
Sorry, we have to talk.
Okay, let's be up there. Okay. Okay. The slide I sent it to your guys. So I can put it on I haven't done a flash. You have it there? If you have it there, then you don't need the flash. Okay, there we go. We're good.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies once again for coming late. It's not in my DNA to be late, but I had to go to a meeting somewhere. Next slide, please. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about four things. One, the new global economic disorder. Pick my words carefully. The new global economic disorder. Two, sorry, before you go there. Two, the next Nigerian economy in 2025 and why 2025 is going to be different from 2024. So, stock market and sector opportunities, but not the stock market really, but sector opportunities, and then summary and conclusion and risks. So go forward. Some quotes that a man is no less a slave because he is allowed to choose a new master once in a term of years. And disorder will ruin the greatest empires. But, there's empires, the Greek Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Egyptian Empire. They come, they go, and the British Empire, empire in which the sun never set until now, the hegemony of the U.S. order. And we are beginning to see some changes. And a few words. Next slide, please. So here we say disruptor, deporter, and deviant, the three Ds. But it's good, So disruption can be creative and positive. Disorder, deporter also has changed the cost of labor. We're just talking about DeepSeek and all of that, and the cost of doing business. And also it has, the side effect of all of this is that it incentivizes resilience. And so rather than have Jackpot syndrome, you'll have Jackpot reverse syndrome. You'll see every Jackpot or whatever it is. Now, so deviant is that we are beginning to see signs that you can back as much as you can, but you cannot bite. Because the three parameters are leadership, policies, and institutions. No matter how strong you are as a leader, the institutions will always win. And you saw that yesterday, and the conversation about the Federal Reserve holding rates. Trump went on a complete tirade, His message to the World Economic, the Davos thing, World Economic Forum, was that interest rates must come down, oil prices must come down. And so what? The Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell said, I'm not going to join issues with anybody. His contract does not expire till February 2026. So he will do what he has to do. Of course, the growth rate came out this afternoon at 2.3%, which is very solid. And so what is important that we must note, a guy called Montesquieu, as far back as 1694, wrote Separation of Powers and the Beauty of Balances. So first thing is that Trump is he has only this term left. So the battle to take over from him has already started. Right? And you can see the conversation around confirmation of this. So the strong institutions are now going to be used to pigeonhole him. So I don't look at it I look at it in the context that it is good for the world, it's good for America, it's good for everybody, for him to bark as much as he can and bite as little as he can. Right? So I think that's the most important thing here. Secondly, go on the next slide, please. So today, the tarifization, or if I may use the word, of the world. Don't forget, that it's about Ricardo and all of the theories about free trade, regional integration, free trade, almost convertible currencies. And if you are going against that trend of thinking, then you're actually disrupting things, and the world has gone beyond that. Look, there was something I noticed about 3-4 days ago when Trump said that they're not going to put any money in the environmental, whatever it is, this green, yeah. And Bloomberg, what did Bloomberg say? Bloomberg said, I will pay America's. So, hello, means nothing. So, the whole conference of parties and all, the whole green energy and, so one man, Bloomberg just says that the United States can do whatever it is. But Bloomberg has said that, and they will have enough money to do it. Oh, we're going to pull out of the World Health Organization. Who cares? So many of these things are just sound bites and campaign promises. But the point is that you have no election to contest anymore. So all you can supervise is the sharing of the spoils of war and the battle to succeed you. I think that's very important. So if you know the limitations of the presidency in America, it's powerful enough that you will know, and the strength of the institutions and the concept of balances and separation of powers, you would know that this is a major opportunity. There was a guy on Farid Zakaria 2 weeks ago, the guy from Singapore, and they asked him about what are the Chinese going to do, and he said the Chinese civilization is 4,000 years old, and that Trump's term is only 4 years, going to 4 years. 4 as a percentage of 4,000 tells you how irrelevant this 4 years is to. I think that's a very, very important comment. So, I'll talk a few minutes. Go to the next slide, please. So, what happened when Federal Reserve kept the rates on standstill, right? That was seen as strengthening the dollar. If the dollar strengthens, it means commodity prices denominated in dollars will actually begin to fall, right? Two, that gold, right? The price of gold goes in the other direction. And the stock market has totally discounted campaign speeches and all those sound bites. The only thing that the stock market recognized was the overvaluation of NVIDIA, right? That's a big thing. And the fact that the cost of what the Chinese have done essentially is to bring down the cost of doing this thing, right? And so, because intellectual property theft has always been part of their game plan anyway. So, and then Trump came out and said, look, for the fintechs, this is a defining moment. The defining moment is not when DeepSeek, the defining moment was when they started the experiments 3, 4, 5 years ago. And how many more of such things are going to come in all industries? So, I think that's very important to note. So, like I said here, strong institutions control and restrict the excessive powers of leaders, So, and tariffs are always passed on. Because the fundamental principle of economics is that every factor will get its fair return, what we call the marginal revenue product of a factor. So if you think you are fixing a price this way, the price will rotate, and because there's information and all of that, so they will sell it to some other person who will sell it to you. So that's very important. Next, and so that's him coming, the new global economic disorder, if you may. So there'll be legal hurdles, there'll be all sorts of things, but he will soon find out that 4 years is nothing in the life of a nation. and that the battle for his election will split the Republican Party fully and the policies for that matter. Are you expecting tariffs to rise in China, Canada, and Mexico? The Chinese have discounted, they've written off the next 4 years and taken a much more a long-term strategic view of global policy. You know, they're not going to be global policemen. They're not going to talk about making the Chinese yuan the reserve currency of the world. No, they're going to do certain things and take advantage of that. Next slide. As far as Africa is concerned, I think one thing is important. The total size of African GDP is not going to grow that rapidly, but as a market, there's also a rotation, right, of forces. That is, you are going to be seeing the oil-producing countries, other commodity-producing countries, but intra-African trade, which used to be about less than 5 to 7%, is now risen to about 20%, and it's going to go higher. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and the way to see it is that 10 years ago, there were only 14 flights between Lagos and Accra. Today, between Lagos and Accra, Ibom Air alone has 2. Air Peace has 2. African World has Sky and all of that. You have over 50 flights. From Abuja to Accra, same thing. 10, 20 years ago, let's say 20 years ago, Dangote Cement was a Nigerian entity, but now they're in about 12 African countries. Air Peace flies all over the African continent. 20 years ago, only Eco Bank, ETI, had footprints across the but today, almost every leading Nigerian bank has footprints across Africa. So what is this about? These guys are not establishing businesses because they want to, for purpose of tourism. They are establishing business because there are opportunities there. So if there's a globalization of activities in the world, and there's regional integration and breaking of boundaries, right? Then what does this mean? And how does this new order affect, one, the global flow of influence and trade and aid? How does it affect Africa? And how does it affect Nigeria? And what opportunity? And is there consistency between what Nigeria is doing and what Africa is doing and what Africa is doing and what the world is doing? I think it's very, very important. Then, so we start changing the way we think of these things and see massive opportunities because nobody's going to give you any notice before things happen. Next slide. So, the U.S. trade relations engagement with Africa and global. So, if you look at this, U.S. trade relations with the OECD is $3.5 trillion, with BRICS, $700 billion, with OPEC, $400 billion, with GCC, $200 billion. So, what do we see? North America, $2.1 trillion, that is Canada. South America, $300 billion. Nigeria, $8 billion. So you, quite frankly, Europe, 1.1 trillion. Asia, 2.1 trillion. Middle East. So this is what Trump is looking at, because he's looking at every transaction by transaction. Where can I get some quid pro quo, right? But, and U.S. imports is about 3.25 trillion, and exports about 2.07. So as a percentage of total trade, the U.S. is not that important. Not only that, you know, you have the African Growth Opportunity Act, and so it's the world's second largest trading nation behind China, but U.S. has trading relations with over 150 countries, regions, and economic blocs. Next slide, please. No, go back, please. Previous slide. No, next. Next slide, please. So, you're going backwards rather than going. Next. Okay. So, of course, we talked about AI and what's happening now. Alphabet, NVIDIA, Microsoft, everybody, two things that AI is making transactions and processing more efficient. But the overvaluation of their the valuation of their stocks based on whatever model they're using has created a bubble. There is an asset bubble there, and something is going to happen. And that, if the Chinese did one thing to disrupt global politics, I don't know whether it was intentional, but COVID disrupted the world. Now, AI, so they are silent and disruptors in one way or the other. So I don't know what this is, where this will end, but definitely it has caught everybody's attention. Caught everybody's attention. Huawei caught everybody's attention. 5G caught everybody's attention. And every time they do something, it has massive implications. Next slide, please. So what's the global growth outlook? US GDP is going to be $29 trillion. China is going to be $18 trillion. Germany, and you find that if you look properly, after Germany is Japan, after Japan is India, right? And that makes it very interesting. If you look at the top 5 economies 20 years ago, they were not exactly this. And the gap between was much wider. If you look at currency flows and trade flows and all of that, it's changed. If you look at the top most valuable stocks in the stock exchange in all of these countries, they are not the same as they used to be. So growth will be 3.3% and supported by, especially in the US and India. The US is going to hunker down and try to do as much. Trump is already pulling troops out of different parts of the world, so he's going to spend more to get things in. But somebody just came to me and said that in Europe and Southeast Asia and Middle East, almost all the electric vehicles that are being used are Chinese electric vehicles and not Tesla. So Elon Musk needs to help restructure the US bureaucracy, but also has to restructure. Next slide. And this has been a lot because NVIDIA, Tesla, all these stocks based on these lofty valuations could mean that it could mean something that there could be an asset bubble. And also a lot of NVIDIA and all this, there are a lot of financial institutions are exposed to this AI. And if what happened in the subprime mortgage in 2008 happens again in this sector, what are we looking at here? But the good news is that when Silicon Valley Bank happened, the global financial system was able to contain it very quickly. So it wasn't 2008. It wasn't the time between when Bear Stearns fell and Lehman Brothers collapsed, right? Was about 6 to 9 months. The time between Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank and when Credit Suisse was absorbed, it took 4 or 5 months for Barclays to say no to Lehman Brothers. But it took 3 days, 1 weekend, for UBS to acquire Credit Suisse. And it took only one statement from the German government to say Deutsche Bank is safe and sound. So we didn't see what happened in 2008 happen again in 2023. So even if there are asset bubbles here, the global financial system is in a stronger position to withstand those shocks. But also, there are opportunities there because it brings down costs of doing business for people. It changes the competitive landscape and also changes the outcomes as you go along. Next slide. So, for Nigeria, see, I always say this, my joke is that it's 16 times more difficult to shoot a moving target than a stationary target. And if you have 2 moving targets, one, then it becomes 16 to the power of, right? So And so when I always think about Kudirat Abiola, who was shot, and the guy was in a car, moving, a fast-moving car, and she was in a fast-moving car. That guy had to be the best sniper in the world to be able to get her right in the middle of the eyes, in, on the highway. So that tells you how difficult. So for Nigeria is changing so many things at the same time, and the world is changing so many things, and Africa is changing so many things. So it could be 16 to the power of 16 to the power of 16. So therein lies the opportunities, because everybody who is doing things the traditional way is bound to be caught napping, and that's what it is. So disinflation, and we have to go forward to about 7 things that Nigeria is doing that will affect everything that the way we know it. And so, next slide, please. Let's look at Nigeria in the context of Africa first before we look at Nigeria itself. In 2015, Nigeria was 21% of African GDP. It's now 13%. In a few, I think tomorrow, no, on Monday, we are going to announce the new rebased GDP and the reconstituted inflation basket. But again, it is true that we should have reconsidered our basket 15 years ago, 3 times, every 5 years. 2009, we did it last. The rebasing was done much earlier. But let's leave the cosmetics and deal with the reality. The reality is that Nigeria is, maybe after rebasing, becomes the leading economy in Africa, but the gap between Nigeria and others has, and because of regional integration pressures, trade. So if you are not efficient in Nigeria, and I mean, I'm talking about cost efficient, resource deployment efficiency, purchasing of import or raw materials or whatever it is, you will not survive. But the rule of origin says that if I produce anything in an African country and it's found to be well produced or fully produced there, I will pay only 5% tariff. So that's why Toyota are smacking their lips, because the highest number of cars imported in this country are Toyota cars. And the highest number of Toyota cars brand imported in this country are Hilux, a patrol vehicle, because people have come to accept that insecurity as an integral part of our system. So for every Mercedes-Benz there's a Hilux car behind. And Hilux is produced almost 70-80% in South Africa. So they are enjoying this, right? So the same thing will happen. Dangote is running all over the place, selling cement. Now we're selling petrol very soon to everybody, selling fertilizer. Guess what? Fertilizer exports alone last year was over $3 billion. Cocoa exports, even though the price has multiplied, it's now $12,000 a ton. It used to be $2,000 a ton 3 years ago, right? So we have gone from $500 million to almost $3 billion in cocoa. So I'm getting simple. So what I'm saying here is that Africa, we will be number 1 after rebasing announced. 9 out of the 20 fastest growing countries are in Sub-Saharan Africa. And when you look at the countries in Sub-Saharan Africa that are growing fastest, they are post-conflict countries. Rwanda, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia. So I'm not saying that we should go into conflict, because now, so as you can see, look at the difference between 2024 and 2026. Because 2025 is fast spent. All right? So the world, 3.23 in 2024, now 3.27. And this was done slightly before Trump came in. Sub-Saharan Africa was 3.57 in 2024, now 4.35 in 26. And that's big, huge. Nigeria was 2.86, went up to 3.16, and it's going to come down to 2.99. Why? Because 2025, aka also known as 2027. So the political struggle has started, and that has a pullback. Ghana, look at Ghana, 3.1 to 4.34 to 4.89. And guess what? Ghanaian inflation, all the way from 54% down to. South Africa announced today they cut rates, but they warned that they're going to tighten it because the sophistication and efficiency of their financial systems are totally different from where we are. Kenya is a very interesting story. 5.03 now to 4.99, and we'll see. So many things are happening in Eastern Africa, but East Africa is going to be the fastest growing region in the continent. And our fintechs are also working there. But one thing about East Africa is that we notice also that the velocity of circulation of money and the efficiency of the payment and settlement system has a lot to do with the growth opportunities in that part of the world. So 1, agriculture, 2, tourism, and 3, very important to note that the M-Pesa, Safaricom, and all of these things have meant a lot. There is a theory that says that the higher the velocity of circulation, the higher the rate of inflation. But no, it's not that way. We've seen some other things. Next slide. So this is African Growth and Opportunity Act. Of course, there's going to be a lot of conversation around that, and Trump is going to negotiate with each African country on his own. Mary looking at how much, your $8 billion, no, I'm not interested. I want to do this. So there's going to be this picking and choosing and all of that. Next. So in the new global dispensation, Africa is more integrated with the global economy. It accounts for 2.2% of global GDP, 2% of global exports. You can imagine how small that is. To outperform the global growth rate in 2025 and to grow 4.2% compared to, right? The Belt and Road Initiative of the Chinese are going to put more money there. Nigeria is already in Paris in the arbitration over the Mambila power thing. But also note that the Chinese have bought over Lafarge cement here. Not because of anything else. It's a long-term play, right? Okay. So there's going to be competition. And a couple of things that we have to note. One is that the Ukraine war there's going to be a truce, and it affects the global supply chains that actually push prices higher. 2, Gaza is going to be in play, but we are going to see a de-escalation of activities there. We are going to see some collaboration between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Israel, the UAE, and all. So the tension, because the price of oil has 1, the cost of production, 2, the cost of the oligopoly of OPEC, and 3, the political risk premium. So if the political risk premium drops, then it means that the price of oil begins to drop. And what does that mean to us in Nigeria? Next slide. So, next slide, this forward. Nigerian economy in 2025 and 2026, because 2025 is the same thing as 2027. Next slide, please. So, first thing I have to note, you are going to hear a lot about rebasing of the GDP and constitution of the inflation basket. Let me explain that to you. Rebasing of GDP means that you're taking a base here, so the base effects are kind of, and it is important to do that for comparable basis. When we did it last, we delayed it intentionally because we went for what we call the high peak, the highly indebted poor country initiative to get debt forgiveness. So the moment we rebased them, we became a medium-sized economy. It means that we do not qualify for debt forgiveness, right? So be careful what you wish for because you may get, right? So now I think that the Nigerian GDP is about roughly 280, used to be $500 billion. So when we do all of this, you may hear in the next week that we are about $500 billion. But it doesn't make anything. It's playing with mirrors, really. The reconsideration of the inflation basket is a very interesting thing. Now, the last time we did it was 2009. At that time, 52%, assume that you earn 100,000 naira, you spend 52,000 naira on food, and you spend about 3,000 naira on telco expense. You spend about less than that on health. You spend so much on education. So that basket has been reconsidered. And within the food basket, rice used to be like 8%, that has come down, and other things have moved. So you are going to see this whole thing. But somebody was on panels this morning and was talking about every time you change the methodology, right? It means nothing if people do not believe it. We changed the methodology on computing unemployment, and the unemployment figures went from 33% to 4.3%. And unemployment rate in the US and Europe is about 4%. And so the guy on panel was saying, look, are you telling me that the same unemployment rate in Nigeria, and he said in his village, over 70% of the people are unemployed. So he can't see. But anytime you talk about unemployment in Nigeria, nobody's just watching, and they're talking about it. So if you come up and now say inflation is now 10%, it's the most dangerous thing to do. So, and that's why panels was emphasizing that don't do that the integrity of data gets questioned, and therefore the good and bad of it begins to affect us. So we have to be careful the way. And Wednesday, that is 6 days from today, at the Lagos Business School breakfast session, the two of us are going to be speaking. I speak first, and followed by the Minister of Budget Planning, and he's going to be talking about GDP numbers. So stay tuned. So then we're talking about the budget, talk about local government financing, talk about telecom tax reform bills, and extension of duty waivers. Those are the 6 things that we're going to talk about very quickly today. But I also noticed today that the head of the unions, NLC, are going to have a strike on Tuesday or protest against telecom tariff. And when they ask him how, why are you, striking for telecom tariff? I said because spend a lot of money on telcos and all that to affect how many people work in the telco sector and how are you going to pay them, So, but again, my understanding, because I used to be the chairman of the minimum wage committee in 2019, that's the dog whistle for saying, telcos, you guys have this size, come and see us so that we don't call off. And the telcos have been bleeding blood for the past 2 years and are mood. They do not have the time nor the temperament to go into that kind of conversation. If you want to strike, go and strike. So, because I couldn't make sense what the union man was talking about. So, I think that's very important to see, whether we like it or not. But MTN came to announce that they have not actually increased, but they are about to. The ministry has approved, the NCC has approved, and I think on the 7th of February, actually, we're having a town hall. I'm going to be the moderator there, where we are talking about broadband, the telco sector, and all of that. So everybody's taking to the waves to put their case forward, which is important. There are policymakers who know that the markets are the ones that discipline everybody. You cannot just announce anything you like and get away with it. So that's what we're going to talk about very quickly. Next, I've actually talked about the rebasing but in 2025, first thing you must know that real GDP is going to be 3.6, higher than what it was in 2024, higher than the population growth rate as well. But the growth rate of GDP is not the same as the distribution of income. What we do see is the inequality in income is increasing in Nigeria. But more important than that is the inequality in opportunity. And one thing you must understand is that naturally, people in most countries, opportunities and people and businesses migrate from the arid area towards the coast. So our analysis shows that over 70% of the new branches of banks opened in Nigeria were all along the coastal region. The base stations tell us, we have that data to show that traffic, data traffic and everything is more. The federal allocation of revenue shows that the oil producing states and Lagos get the bulk of everything. If you look at the VAT numbers, everything is so it is quite clear. And then when you suppose that against poverty map, it flips the other way. So one, here is snapshot analysis shows that there's more money in the coastal region than the northern part of the country. The trend shows that it's been moving, right? And the trend shows that he who has the money can do whatever he wants. Okay, so I think it's important to know that. So not just look at GDP itself, but look at the trend of these things. One thing that we think is happening, because we talk about Trumpism and all of that, and the Chinese battle for intellectual property, one thing we know and we believe, and nobody has told me this, but is that there's imminent and inevitable convertibility of the currency. And that the economy as a whole, and we have that in point 6 here, talk about the level of disequilibrium versus the level of equilibrium. People here don't even think about it, but I want you to think about it very deeply, because therein lies the opportunity. The more disequilibrated a sector is, the greater the opportunities when, and the more equilibrated a sector is, the lower the volatility. And there's proof of it. Okay? So you look for where there's disequilibrium, because that's where you're going to have swings, and invest in that. People are doing infrastructure where there's massive disequilibrium. You go in there. Okay, so imminent convertibility of the currency. We talk about reconstitution and rebasing. We talk about the economy becoming more digital. Whether we like it or not, you see, people talk about Obasanjo's government being the most progressive, GSM. Even if we didn't invest in GSM, GSM would have GSM does anyway. For everybody, so for me, the biggest achievement of the Obasanjo administration was the pension reform. It helped to mobilize savings. The sale of a lot of government state-owned enterprises, right? And so many things. But people just talk about, the GSM sector. GSM, every country in the world is using GSM now. So it's not an accomplishment as such. But it helped as an enabler, right? 5, the proven oil reserves, gas reserves, and the diversification of the economy away from oil is happening not because of oil, but because the exchange rate convertibility is bringing up opportunities of domestication of the economy and doing things that are different. So anywhere you think the pricing of something is more expensive, then you come and then you can see that. That's why Imperial College is setting up a campus in Ghana, and Bradford University. Everybody, because it's becoming too expensive to even get the education there. So about the equilibrium between interest rate and inflation, right? That's one. The difference between the power market rate and this rate, the difference between the price of petrol here and neighboring countries. That tells you where it is. So the effort to stabilize the forex market, just a waste of time. The forex market will stabilize itself, right? All you have to do is to ensure that there's, so Euro bond, diaspora bonds, and all of these things. You can borrow now and borrow, but eventually you have to now produce and find out where the efficient rate is. Mobile broadband subscriptions to reach 141 million in 2029. And somebody was saying today that how much spent so much on some crazy things. The stock market capitalization is going to, first of all, drop before going back up. But there's big opportunity there as people begin to exit into the markets. So that's a picture of 2025, the way we see it. Next slide, please. So let's pick three of the themes that we'll just talk about. Economy becoming more digital. Why do we say that? Because if you looked, somebody said it this week or last week, yes, that the payments were about 6 times more than the ATM payments. And 3 years ago, nobody talked about OPay, CUDA, Money Point. Once Mayfield did that currency thing, that opportunity came and then bingo. And there's no going back. There's no going back. I tried to fix something in my car over the weekend, and the guy who was helping me fix it said, okay, I'm going to go and buy, took a picture of it and video. I'm going to go and buy the part somewhere. So I said, okay, when they said, okay, the man said, this is the price. After we negotiated, I said, okay. He said, please pay him directly. So I said, okay. Give me his number. I said, or pay account. All right. The next one, Money Point account. You, how do I reimburse you? Say, oh, give me CUDA account. Then we went, something else, found something else wrong. We went somewhere else. In any case, I had to pay 6 different artisans. None of them had an account with any of the main banks. Not one of them. So I asked my driver, please go and meet them too. How do I pay? Oh, I'll have pay my OPay account. So I said, then you, my driver, said, but we pay your salary to a bank. He said, I got that one too much. So next slide. So those things is that change behavioral patterns without your knowing it, right, has come to stay. And nobody knew when it started, right? So what does it mean? Transaction speed, efficiency, rise of cashless economies, and the velocity of circulation of money. So what were people borrowing money for before? They borrowed money because I want to buy your maize, and I bring a check. You are waiting for it to clear, stay in a hotel, take the money, wait, then I collect it, travel back. Now everything is settled at once. And people have their working capital lines were for inventory and receivables. Now the inventory is there and the receivables are 0. So it means that you don't need those overdraft lines. And that's all our banking system we're trained, do this, we're working capital, current ratio, asset test, all those things are meaningless. Right? So next slide. Imminent convertibility of the currency. So digital payments, exchange rate unification, and I have a colleague who has 5 people in his house who work for him, and they're all from Benin Republic. And so there was a conversation last week we were having, and all of them say, okay, we need to increase our salary. I say, why? I say, because when you pay us, we buy MTN credit and transfer it to our people in Porto Novo. And that's how. So you can have all your currency restrictions here. They buy credit, transfer it there. Those people use it, convert it to CFA, and I said, how? And they calculated it to the wire. So I couldn't understand it. So, anyway, he said, we need 25% increase. And when you work it out, it was the rate of depreciation of the currency relative to, and what the MTN thing was doing to them. So I think that was one of the things. So the digital adoption, the telephone system, and the convertibility of the currency, you can't do anything about it. Somebody said here that, what's his name, the guys who were doing Aboki FX was the cause of all the problems. When Aboki FX was abolished, in fact, the currency fell more, right? Then they say, oh, look, to be honest with you, the currency will find its way. And if you look at February last year, by December last year, December 2023, December 2023, the currency was trading at about 850 naira to a dollar, parallel market. Then it fell, and by February, it was 1,910 naira to a dollar. Then Cardoso went in and increased interest rates by 400 basis points. The naira started appreciating. In fact, it appreciated 1,200. And it's been fell again, right? The more they tighten and all of that. So we now found that there's a correlation between the difference between the interest rates and inflation rate here and the difference between the interest rate and inflation rate in the US. And once you monitor and apply that formula, you'll find that the currency has stayed. So when the president announced his budget, that the the exchange rate assumption, everything happened in 1 week. When they met with the governors, they used 1,500. When they met with the economic team, they used 1,400. Between then and when Tinubu got into the brokers, they changed to 1,500. Right? So, and ever since they announced 1,500 as the target rate, you will see that the exchange rate has stayed within a band. Okay? I think that's important. One, imminent convertibility. Two, the fact that you don't have to do anything. Right? The currency will find its true value. Right? And the supply is there. And there are things that are too expensive, nobody will buy them. Right? So I think that's the reality. Because you see, indifference curve analysis shows you that you have a budget constraint. If you have only 100 naira and you are buying 50 naira of product A and 50 naira of 50 units of product B, the moment you increase the price of one, right? So the budget constraint for Nigeria has moved inwards. People are having to make substitution decisions and price decisions. And see what happened in the last 2 weeks. The price of tomatoes, which is very interesting. Tomatoes a year ago was 150,000 naira. Then it dropped to about 50,000. Yesterday it was 25,000 naira. And so, but when the price of tomatoes was 150,000, people started substituting with carrots and other things to give cucumber, right? And elasticity kicked in, and all those prices went. Now that the price of tomatoes has come down, we now saw that everything to do with it, both as substitutes, alternatives, and complementary goods. So groundnut oil came down from 23,500 to about 17,000 naira. Right? Because these things you don't eat them in isolation; they come together. So we try to do the analysis to find out what exactly is happening. Things are happening. One, the effective price of those products across the border, taking recognition the exchange rate. Two, the joint demand and complement that people, because of the income constraint, people are now eating less of some and eating more of the other things. So again, that is what is driving this whole process. And to be honest with you, I've seen the financials of a few companies, and those companies that were complaining that we can't get foreign exchange, do you know all of those companies are doing better today? Because at the higher exchange rate, that time the exchange rate was 800. Now, they are using 700 as their base price, bringing things in, and more sales, more profit, even in dollar terms. So the economy is more efficient because we are closer to equilibrium. So bear that in mind. So we've said digital impact in terms of velocity of circulation and efficient use of money and settlement. We've talked about convertibility of the currency. People, the currency will go to 5,000. It will not go there because you don't have 5,000 naira to spend. If you spend 5,000 naira on a dollar, you have no money to do anything else. So next slide, please. So this is what an efficient payment system does. And look at ATMs, look at all of that, and go the positive and negative, go because we are running out of time. Next slide. So can you see that payment system, the first one, which is overnight payment system, the value went from 600 trillion to 1 trillion to 1, whatever it is. Is it quadrillion, right? All right. Just 1,000 trillion, right? Okay. POS went from 10.73 trillion to 18 trillion, up by 68%. NEFT went from 26 trillion to 49 trillion, up by 84%. Checks only grew by 5.56%. You cannot write a check more than 10 million naira anyway. So you can see what has happened. Value of transaction maintained an upward trend, 79% higher, driven by sustained increase in digital payment systems. So that's what you're seeing. And you know the equation which we use called the Fisher's equation, stock of money multiplied by the velocity of circulation equals prices and total transaction, MV equals PT. And that tells you a lot, right? Next slide. In spite of that, we did not see inflation. You saw that 79% increase in the velocity of circulation there. Inflation stayed at about 33, which means it is not true that the greater velocity drives inflation. So this is the difference between real interest rates and nominal interest rates. As we are going closer and closer to 25, that is beginning to bridge. And if that gap closes, then your currency strengthens. If that gap closes, you are likely to be more profitable in whatever business because the exchange rate risk, right, and the interest rate risk is actually beginning to minimize. Okay? Next slide. What does this all mean for market and sector opportunities? Where are you going to make money out of this? I think that's why we're here. Next slide. So this is what you're seeing. Year-to-date return, Egypt, Nigeria, and 1 year, right? You can see Ghana did the best return. It was the best performing market in the world, even after adjusting for currency, 60%, right? So when you adjust this, so Nigerian, after you take inflation into consideration, Nigeria was minus 20, while in Ghana it was plus 20. Next slide. So what are you going to see? You are going to see companies are operating profitably current year, but they have a carryover of losses of the past, right? So the effect of that is that they will not be paying taxes. And some of them may not pay dividends because they replenish their capital stock. So if you are a stock market investor who is looking for a dividend and looking for this, you have something. But I think there's an opportunity to even buy now. Tax reform means that people are paying, the nominal rates may be lower, but people are going to pay much more because of the waivers and all of that. So tax revenue will increase. Telco tariff has very minimal impact on cost of production, but it has a lot of impact on productivity. Electricity tariff is a big issue because band A, band B, nobody seems to understand it, but that sector needs to be reformed dramatically. And interest rates, two things I want you to understand about the interest rates. That what we see, we think that inflation is going to come down towards the end of the year. Forget about the rebate reconstruction. It should be approaching 25 to 27%. But if they do the reconstruction, they may tell you that it's already down to 15 or whatever it is. But nobody will believe that. So because inflation is going to be reducing, and I think it's important to know that the MPC was supposed to meet this week, Monday and Tuesday, but it was postponed. So when? 17th and 18th of February. Why 17th and 18th of February? Because inflation numbers come out on the 15th. So if you were to use the old inflation numbers that came out, which showed the inflation, then you would have no choice to increase interest rates. But if you use 17 and 18, my guess is that we will hold. And then if the following month inflation comes out lower, then we begin to. But there's a coefficient that shows that for every 1% increase in interest rates, the default factor in loans for banks increases by a particular. But also, if interest rates begin to come down, repayment and also the default factor begins to reduce. So watch out for, again, remember what I said at the beginning, because things are bad, people think it will be bad forever. Look out for that slowing down in inflation and slowing down in interest rates, and begin to take a position for businesses that are interest rate sensitive. For businesses that are exchange rate sensitive, it doesn't matter because the currency is going to stay within the band and will not move dramatically. Next. So these opportunities in energy, ICT, energy off-grid solar, wind, and all sorts of things. Then CNG and all those things are there. So, but I think we have to spend a minute looking at the effect of the Dangote refinery, and because last year when we were talking here, people saw that the Dangote refinery was a silver bullet that would solve all our problems. No. But what it has done is that it has brought competition into a sector that was cornered. It has guaranteed supply, right? And when I phoned Betty aware that I was, and what happened in Ikoyi, I just noticed. There was this massive long queue in front of NNPC refinery, petrol station. And I said, what? Why? What's going on here? The queue went all the way from Ikoyi Club all the way back to Southern Sun or Moving Peak. So, took the other path, turned around and follow more. When I got to Falamo, there was not a car queuing up at the gas station. And then I said, what's the difference between the price at this place and the other? And well, that's my natural calling as an economist. And I tried to figure it out. MRS 970, right? NNPC, I think 996. And about 1,100 and so 1,030, right? So the difference is probably about 100 naira or 70 naira. So if depending on how many liters you are buying, it's a lot of money. And also there's this stupid rumor, I don't know whether it's true, that if you buy petrol in certain petrol stations, the petrol evaporates faster. And people believe it. They believe it that, okay, you buy petrol at this station, in 2 weeks my petrol is finished. But if I so and the story goes round. I can't believe it, right? So you know, but what does it tell you? That Nigerian economic agents are becoming so rational that every difference in price means a lot in terms of, but if you look at the graph, between the first 7-8 months, the increase in the petrol price from 197 to, was about 450% from 400, 450%. So since it got to 990, the swings have been not more than 3 or 4%. We then went further to do what we call vehicular intensity count, right? And we have somebody stay on this of Adeola Odeku at 11 o'clock every morning to count the number of cars that are going in this direction, and Ozumba and Badiwe. And we try and correlate that to the price of petrol. The first thing that happened when the price of petrol went up, the number of cars on Adeola Odeku dropped by about 34%. After 3-4 days, it came back up, right? So why? I said, no, that's not, that's sample size. So we then tried to plot Google Map distance and time from Victoria Land to Ikeja Airport and different times for television. We figured out that it was. And when you do that, and then you do going home traffic, we saw very, very interesting trends. And let me say, stay tuned. so And it's interesting how people are beginning to react to these things. Very interesting. And why people are spending less on some things and more on certain things. And those behavioral patterns become a very important trend for people to invest in consumer durables and all. So very, very interesting things. Next slide. Cement and building materials. Great opportunity here. And somebody said, why would the Chinese buy Lafarge when the limestones at Ewekoro and what's the name, Shagamu have all almost been washed out? But they also have Ashaka and some other. So, what is the strategic intent of that acquisition, and what's the time frame they have in mind? What do they seek to achieve? Again, it came as a surprise, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But there is a massive civil construction boom coming here because, like I said, 5 aka 2027. Therefore, every governor, everybody who is politically inclined are trying to buy iron rods, buy cement to build, and everywhere. The Arise award show. Oh, one because they had many projects. This our definition of projects is concrete, right? So and it's cheaper and more efficient to build some projects than to buy PVCs or to do the two to guarantee you do the projects and then you buy the PVCs, right? So we see a lot, but not only civil construction but real estate. And if you go along Ahmadu Bello Way between Atlantic City all the way to the end this way, there are at least, and Bishop Oluwole, there are at least 16 long cranes, high cranes, putting up high-rise buildings. Massive. So huge investments. More high-rises between this road, Oluwole, Alfred Rawane, and all of that than the whole of Nigeria put together. Why are they investing? Hedge against inflation, happening for money laundering, or what have you, together. So, again, big opportunities there. But don't forget that real estate is cyclical, right? Therefore, if things are going to go down, they go down. And a lot of people that went into it because, as developers, when interest rates were average, have now found that they need more money to fund those transactions. And some of those transactions are stranded already. So another thing to think about. But the exit barriers for those guys are much higher than the entry barriers, so they need to complete those things. If not, they're dead. Agriculture, the final one that we're talking about. Agriculture is about production, storage, right? Storage, logistics, production, right? And then fertilizer. There are so many parts of the value chain there that have very serious opportunities. And so Nigeria produces 75% of yam tubers in the world, about 1.3 million tons, but has only less than 4% of the export market. Yeah, because you can't. That's the big thing, right? So your port system for exports, the entire thing, the infra, it's impossible to do anything. But do not bet on the fact that it will not change. Remember those who bet on the fact that Nigeria will, everybody went to downstream 10 years ago. Everywhere was a tank farm. There are 5 assumptions. 1, Nigerian refineries will never work. 2, Nigeria will always import product. Three, that subsidies will be paid all the time. Three, that the currency will weaken. And five, that it doesn't matter what, whether you bring it in or not, you will get your subsidy. So it became a racket. Then everything changed. The battle you are seeing between NNPC and this and all, Dangote Refinery is all about how to break down that interest. And that thing has gone and gone forever. So a lot of bank firms are now thinking of what to put in there, maybe rice or something else. So don't bet on the fact that things are going to be permanent, because therein lies the opportunity for investment. The more rigid it is, the more the opportunity when you change things. I think that's a discussion for today. Next slide, please. So summary. One, next slide. Nigeria's GDP will projected at 3.6. We know that. Strong manufacturing performance. Dangote Refinery, Dangote Petrochemicals, and competition in that sector. Consumer confidence expected to strengthen in 2025. We've seen that already. Inflation elevated but will taper with the basket. Interest rates will remain high, but with expected reduction to 3% towards the middle of the year. And further, money supply growth will moderate. CBN will maintain orthodox monetary framework and continue FX market interventions. The exchange rate will float around, we think, 10% from 1,700 towards 1,550. The target for the government is 1,500. So that's good, right? Currency in circulation. Those guys who pay Money Point and others, there's nothing you can do about them. You got to work with them to make money, because that's the way. And people say, my staff say they don't go to the bank anymore. They just go get money from the POS and do that if they want to go anywhere. I said, why? They said, look, it's too much trouble. ATM said you can't take more than 5,000. The cashier says, go and bring this in. Look. Those women, and they are worth the price. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's 2025 from my own crystal ball. Thank you.
Thank you, Bismarck. I hope you learned something. Did he frighten you? More optimistic than you thought. Do you have a tank farm? Okay. I think we have time for a few questions. So I'm going to ask that if you have a question, you want to help?
Well, I would just like to start it.
No, do you want? Are you asking it?
No, I will take it around.
Can you hang on?
I'll hang on. That's fine.
So we're going to take a few questions, and after the questions, we go to the bar there,
Yes, sir.
and then we'll have some refreshment, and you can ask more questions. So we'll just take a few questions. Please, okay, you can start.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rewani. Very, very interesting presentation. A very quick question. So I work in the fintech industry, and one of the major challenges we see today is cybersecurity. But I wonder why it never makes front page in any presentation we see in terms of economic outlook. As we talk about digitization of the economy and improving payment systems, digital banking and all of that, I think cybersecurity should be at the front end of that conversation, because phishing attacks have increased, malwares, ransomwares, all sorts of. AI has also made it very, very easy for all of this to happen. So I wonder why we don't discuss more about it, and what's your take on it? Thank you.
Interesting. Before I got here, somebody called me and said, oh, please, I want to authenticate something. I got an invitation that you are going to be speaking in so place. I said, who are those people? When? He said, no, but I said, look, everybody, so much fake news, right? And it is a major, people are investing a lot of money, but not investing in the defense systems, right? And the more this transaction, the more that risk. And that risk is even more than business risk. Because everything you have can go. And it's happening every day. People are being hacked, their transactions are. And I went somewhere and something interesting happened. A friend of mine works in the Interpol. And when I saw him, I said, "What?" Yeah, he said, "No, I'm going to a bank because I want to pick up, I won't mention the name of the bank. I want to pick up somebody." I said, "What happened?" He said, 100 million naira was, this guy was in Interpol, was blocked. And that the guy who has this money or who the suspect is abroad. And 100 million in the account. Before they could say from there, I'd moved to the GM, Blackburn close and all of that. So everything, I can tell you, I work closely with the telcos. You don't want to know what's happening, how these guys are, right? And one thing I do know is that 60 to 70% of all these transactions are insider related. So once you can clear up your internal security, you are more likely to survive. So there's cyber, somebody inside, always, right? Always, right? I'm chairman of the special fraud unit thing for the police at Milverton Road. I can give you a list. It's unbelievable, and people are lured with all sorts of sweet transactions, right? Well, why? I was asking, why don't you come to me? Because even before you start the discussion, they profile you to see whether you have that inclination. Then before they throw the blood before the shark. so something has to be done at the global stage for cybersecurity. But they tried to. There was a penalty or a tax for cyber, and everybody reacted negatively. And I didn't blame them because all the taxes we pay, not all, but most taxes we pay get leaked somewhere, right? So people are resistant. But there is a big threat of cybersecurity, and it's also a threat of terrorism. It's linked. So money laundering, terrorism, and cybersecurity are linked. Believe you.
All right. So if you have a question, please keep it very, very brief. No long questions, please. Thank you. Introduce yourself before you ask your question.
Good evening. My name is Jette. I'm the Consul General of Denmark. And I have one question. We might be we really want more collaboration, but we have a lot of investors, and you need to take the box on sustainability and impact if they have to bring the money on the table, because they're looking back to their own backyard. How do we prepare our foreign investors coming into Nigeria? Because we're making a lot of noise about, come down to Nigeria and trying to break the bad news about what's going on. How do we best tell them how to handle the need for impact and sustainability to be found in the money that they have to invest? Also knowing the challenges, as you also just touched upon here. It's not easy, but it's prerequisite in order to bring money on the table, while also supporting the local production when they want to export at the same time.
The truth is that the way to look at it, honestly and objectively, is to take a 5-year average of all and average 5 years. If you see that inflation last 5 years averaged, say, 25%, and then 2023, 2024, it got up to, say, 40, and now it's now looking like 27. You look at the exchange rate differential between the parallel and other, where we had 5 exchange rates, now we have maybe 2, right? And the difference between one and the other is not 60%, is now 10%. Can live with that. Look at time it takes between when you process and transfer and when you get out. The turnaround time used to be X, is now that. The most important one is that clearly, if you have to deal with the Nigerian police, the Nigerian judicial system, then you have to be as frank and objective as possible that this is what happened. But is conform more with best practice. So let's not attribute it to anybody. It's a natural trend that markets move from imperfect states to more perfect states, and that the volatility as we get closer to equilibrium is lower, and then you can do business. And everybody who has been doing business based on the old parameters and now doing business under the new parameters, they're selling less, but they're making more profit. And central bank governor said, I'm interested in the value of the currency. I'm interested in the stability of the currency. That's what he said. The stability of the currency is more important to me than so I'm not going to spend money trying to support the currency. And that is true. Take another parameter. How much was Nigeria owing the international airlines at this time last year? I had blocked, but so now, but in the last 3-4 days, I saw the currency appreciate, but I think it's fake appreciation. It is not true. I mean, what could have made the currency appreciate? The price of oil is down, and we know that we sold more oil. The price of gas is down. The price of cocoa is flat. And so how? Why? So some people are playing games. Some people said some Bitcoin money is coming back in here. I don't know, but so I would look more for value than just direction. Thank you.
Sunday Dosun, CFO. I think one of the areas that are not usually discussed is the cost of governance in Nigeria at all levels of government, state, federal, and to an extent the local government. We see the executive, the legislators, I mean, they receive allegedly humongous salary, and some of them still keep their hands in the treasury and pay for their children's school fees for over 10 years. I mean, for a period of 10 years in the future. And we see a lot of government officials harass us on the roads with convoys. You don't see that sense of prudency and sense of manage resources in a very reasonable manner. So I think that's one of the reasons people actually resist increase in taxation, because that's where the money goes. And some of these officials still pay for their hands in the cookie jar. So what should we do? I think it's one of the reasons the economy is not growing at its optimum best. So what we do in our individual space, as a collective, how do we tell the government? You've been part of government, you've been chairman of many committees. How do you tell to the power that please take it easy on us? Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I've never held a government position. I'm a pseudo advisor or whatever it is. But the reality is, let us look at it from a macroeconomic perspective. The Nigerian economy is about 247 to 250 billion naira. The entire budget of the federal government, even after everything, is 49 trillion naira. Together, then you double it for the states. So let's say we have 100 trillion naira. In terms of materiality, it's not going to change anything. If they like, they can steal everything, right? Then you will not have money to do anything you have to do, right? But I think look at the relative importance. Government expenditure is about, in nominal terms, about 8-9% of total GDP. So it is not government revenue that is stolen that is the problem. It is these structural rigidities created by policy makers to export from businesses and private individuals. So the money being stolen is from people. The extortion racket that goes on is infinitely more than government revenues that are stolen. And those policies are intentionally put there to create an extortion. But the good news is that every day that passes, some of these things are beginning to fall apart. I read last week where the president appointed 2 board members and all of that. And everybody, normally in those days, you'll be looking for your cousins. Or when I looked at it, some of those appointments, chairman, Federal Medical Center in Asaba, and that's a big party member, the public relations officer of the party. The chairman of the party was made chairman of Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. When you are going to what do you call it, concession the 4 main international airports. So what role do you have? If it was 20, 30 years ago, if you're made Minister of Communication, you had power over everything. And so those changes are taking place, and we can never go back to those good old days. What does that do? It means that the few places that are left, the few opportunities that are there for stealing, right? Everybody, the intensity of rivalry for stealing, right? Because that's all that is left. There were 10 windows open before. 7 have been closed. So all of us will now go to those 3 windows. And you know what happens when you go to a stadium and then somebody say, hey, and everybody rushes, the stampede and everybody dies. So I think that's my attitude. One, in terms of materiality, the total amount of government revenue is not that much. 2, you are not going to solve Nigeria's government problems. This is a business opportunity conversation. We are not going to solve it. Nigeria's problems will solve themselves because it is no longer consistent with the momentum, right? Like we're talking about Trump just now. So things have changed dramatically, and it's no longer that way. And more than anything, it's about being the governance, even in the private sector. You'll be surprised that governance in the private sector is even at times more opaque, more deficient, more corrupt than some of the public sector. So corruption is not a public sector phenomenon. It's a phenomenon of a rent-seeking crony capitalist system that we have, which has to be dismantled as we go along. Right? Nobody told, just because Aliko started producing, all of a sudden the Warri refinery started producing, no. And after 3 days, we didn't see them again. Then Port Harcourt refinery started. So let's see how long they can sustain that supposed production. Right? NNPC is now saying we are publishing this, publishing that. So,
good evening, sir.
yes.
My name is Judith. I play in the downstream sector.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a question. As you said, you don't know what tank farm owners would do with the tank farm currently. There are a lot of us who own those facilities, and some of us actually did good business. But remember that these tank farms came about because of policies that were brought about some government officials
Yes.
for their own good. Now they have driven it to the end and said, okay, Dangote is working. Very good. We are one of those people who wanted fair play. Right now, you want to buy Coastal. Tank farms are strictly storage facilities
Yes.
for you to transport your product. All of us cannot go to Dangote refinery with our different trucks. The roads are bad. People there would also suffer. We're supposed to evacuate this product from Dangote refinery.
Yes.
Coastally, you will still need the tank farms
Yes.
to do that. But some of his policies are not working for us. I didn't know whether to say this. I was a bit conflicted on saying it. The truth is, you cannot go there. You say you want to sell Coastal, then you go there and they're telling you you can only evacuate so percentage of it, Coastal. You must truck the remaining, and you must keep 10% of it when you're actually borrowing money from the bank. So for me, the I feel as if I needed to say this because some of us that are playing in this sector are actually suffering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I look at it in the context of the market efficiency will emerge. And it's important that you say this and the conversation is had because Dangote himself is open to all. So if you evacuate from the coastal, there's a different price. If you evacuate by road, a different price. And I think also he's bringing CNG trucks so that he can guarantee uniform pricing across the country. Again, NNPC and Dangote have what they call a bilateral monopoly. In other words, that's right. So single buyer, single seller, right? And so the word monopoly is a no-no in Nigerian government circles, but I think that bilateral monopolies are not sustainable normally. Sooner or later, you will move towards an oligopoly where there'll be few sellers and the opportunity also to import products. Ability is there. So the downstream sector, that's why I left it out. It's not, we don't consider that as a star or for investment because whether you like it or not, refineries are high volume, thin margin. High volume, thin margin. And so many things go wrong in that business. So.
Thank you very much. I think that's the last question, right? Please, we still have one out there. If you have questions, let's meet out there. If he's not around, I'll answer your questions. Okay, I would like us to do, first of all, I want to thank you again. We talked about the fact that you've been our partner for more than 10 years. You've done it free for us. We continue to appreciate this. Thank you very much. But can you come and do vote of thanks and then we'll go to the other side. Go to the other side.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. You must agree with me that it's been an insightful and thought-provoking session, and it can only be delivered by no other than Mr. Bismarck Rewani. Can we just put our hands together for him? So on behalf of Harvard Business School Association of Nigeria, I would like to thank you, sir, for taking time like this to come and talk to us about the outlook for 2025. And you must all agree that it's very important that we do this